Welcome to another episode of That's Some Crazy Shit with Kelly and James. My name is Kelly, and my co-host is my good buddy and friend, Mr. James. What's up, dude?
What's going on?
What did I just hear? Did I just hear an evil cackle?
Not a cackle. Sinister laugh, maybe. Chuckle, not a cackle.
Sinister laugh. That's funny. So, how are you doing?
Good. Trying to stay out of all the smoke and heat.
Because it's hot.
It's hot and it's bad air outside. Hey, but there's no such thing as global climate change, so don't worry about it.
Mm-mm. And all the conspiracy theories that say the reptilians are turning the Earth into their own planet are all false.
They're coming true now.
That's funny. That's a good conspiracy theory. Because it would be seeming to come true.
Okay, man. All the GOPs rolled back all those legislations they had for clean water, clean air. What's up with that?
We don't want you to have clean water and clean air.
Yeah, we're changing the climate for our reptilian overlords.
And we're not saying that it's true. We're just saying.
Wink, wink.
So, James, today we have a guest. We have nobody from the paranormal, right? Yeah, nobody that's psychic or anything like that. But this guy, I think, is hilarious. His name is Wayne McFarland, and he's an author. And he wrote a memoir, right? And it's called Tales from the Day, Life-Shaping Events That, the truth be told, all happened under the heading of Oops.
That's a mouthful.
It is a mouthful. And so in this book, he has got 19 just crazy stories that just happened to him by chance. You know, in each story, that's not what he was planning to do. It's like, these things just kind of happened by chance. And so he's got some funny stories. He's got some just crazy stories. And I thought he would make the perfect guest, kind of give us a break from the woo-woo. Not that we love the woo-woo, but you know, this guy's led an interesting life, and I just thought he's a great storyteller, and I love a great story.
He is, and it's funny because all this stuff falls under crazy shit.
Well, oops.
Yeah, well, yeah.
You know, so I can't wait to bring him on. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right. Well, welcome to the podcast, our new best friend, Wayne McFarland. Wayne, thank you so much for being a part of That Some Crazy Shit with Kelly and James. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Kelly and James. I have been looking forward to it very much.
I have also.
We are excited to have you here and talk about your book, Tales from the Day. I think you said it's something like Tales from the Day from the meaning of oops. Tell me the title of that again.
Well, it's Tales from the Day, and it's various things that happened under the heading of oops.
Yes, under the heading of oops.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Well,
so Wayne, welcome to the show. And
thank you, James.
And I'm excited because Kelly's been telling me about what a wonderful storyteller you are.
Well, thank you.
So that being said,
they're all true. They're all true, James.
And I'm excited because this is gonna be some crazy shit, I can tell. So I think we need to start out with this monkey story I've been hearing so much about.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, the book itself is a series of vignettes which I put together after reading a bunch of memoirs, which really sucked. You know, most people, as I was telling Kelly, that most people, they look back at things and the book becomes some atrocious thing of, I gazed at the mountains and said, there lies my destiny. It's all crap. And so I thought, that's not the way life really happens. The way life really happens is you blow town with a monkey, or you lose 10 grand at the Hollywood sign, or you pitch a loan shark for advertising contracts. That's what happens in life. And people like James end up running podcasts with a partner, that's how it happens, right? So Blowing Town with the Monkey is in Tales from the Day, which is available on Amazon. God, I love it when I do that, Anyway,
you gotta get the plug-in. Yeah, you gotta get the plug-in.
I'm shameless, but
we have to share your story.
Okay. Well, what happened was, before I was married, I had a roommate, like we all do, a guy, and I came home one day and there was a cage in the living room. There was nothing in it. It was empty, and I thought that was kind of unusual, but my roommate was out at a party or something, and it wasn't until the next day when a monkey showed up in the cage that I thought we should have a chat. And my roommate wove this spectacular tale implying that the monkey was somehow rescued from a college. And it was only later it occurred to me that the college was liberal arts, and I doubted that philosophy professors were vivisecting monkeys. But and the monkey, the problem was I hated the monkey and the monkey hated me. Now, I hated the monkey because it would crawl into my bed to sleep and it had a bladder problem. The monkey hated me, I am convinced, because I used to interrupt its benders. We would have friends over, and the monkey would grab their stubby little bottles of beer, wrap its hands and its feet and its tail around the bottle of beer, and lay on its back and chug it. Now, James, it'd be like you or I drinking like 3 gallons of beer, right? and the monkey got really grumpy. I mean, it was bad enough sober. So I started cutting the monkey off after 2 beers, and I am convinced that's why the monkey hated me so badly. So one day we decided we were going to leave town. This is a little town in Minnesota, and go to California. So we decided to go to California by way of Boston, which made perfect sense. I had an ex-girlfriend. Yeah, I had an ex-girlfriend out there, so off we went. And the ladies that we were hanging around with, in a fit of insanity, said, "Oh, look at that sweet little thing. We'll take care of the monkey." Well, that lasted about 15 minutes until the landlord dropped by to see if they were torturing some little child in there. I mean, monkeys are very loud. So we got the monkey back, and our landlord, after about 5 minutes, came over to us and said, "That stops, or you stop right now." And so my roommate, who nominally was the owner of the monkey, asked if he could borrow my van. Yeah, we were doing the van cross country thing, and he left with the monkey and came back without the monkey. And now, as I've said, I hated the monkey. So on the one hand, I was joyous, but I said, okay, I'll bite. What happened to that little beer swilling SOB? And my roommate placed his hand on his heart and he said, "Cheetah." Can you believe, James, he called this monkey Cheetah? I mean, it's like some black and white old Tarzan movie, right? And he said, like naming a dog Spot.
Yeah.
And he said, "Cheetah's in a better place." And I thought,
oh no,
God, I hated that monkey. I didn't want to see it murdered, And my roommate said, no, I didn't kill it. He said, I donated it to a children's show on a Boston TV channel. And they were delighted to have the monkey. It was a kid's show and so forth. So we had a little business going in Boston, and we went completely broke. So I headed off to California, which was the original plan, and my roommate went off someplace else. And sometime later, I got a letter from my ex-girlfriend in Boston, and she informed me that this monkey had become famous. They had named the TV program after the monkey. And a monkey, the show was packed with screaming kids and endorsements, and in her note to me, she said, well, at least one of you made it here in Boston. James, I thought that was kind of harsh. I mean, I really did. But the monkey is, I don't know what, monkeys live a long time. For all I know, it's still there emceeing this show in Boston. But
oh my God.
So the bottom line is we went broke and the monkey became a TV star. Yeah.
A monkey with a drinking problem hits it big.
Yeah, that's it. So if it happened for Cheetah the monkey, it can happen for any one of us.
There's hope.
Yeah, there's hope.
Oh no.
Faint. It's faint. The hope is faint, but it is there.
And I wish we had video so everyone could see how hard Kelly is trying not to laugh.
It is hilarious. Oh my gosh. So, Wayne, I gotta tell you, with all of these stories, and I think the book has like 27 chapters, right? So how did you choose? I'm pretty sure it sounds like there were more than 27 events that happened in your life that would fall under the definition of oops. But how did you manage to pick these 27 stories? That's a really good question. No one's asked me that before. I sat down and I made a list of everything I could think of that had happened under the oops heading. And these were sort of at the top of the list. That's the best way I could do it. I thought, writing a story about the day Johnny Cash hit on my wife was probably going to be interesting to people. I hope I was right. So yeah, that's how I did it. I basically listed them, and there were a couple my wife dinged. Said, you will not write about that, and I'm not going to talk about them here either. So in looking at all the chapters, there's a couple of times where it seems like people are always trying to kill you.
Yeah, it's just the damnedest thing. I don't quite know what that was all about. Somebody in a bar in Trinidad, pulling a knife. That's a little more understandable, but there's a lot of talk now about all kinds of nonsense. Canceling the 1619 project and all of this foolishness. And, that was a lot of years ago. And some friends of mine and I decided we'd go to New Orleans to party. And that was during the Freedom Rider era. I mean, that goes back a ways, right? And we were later I became very political, but at the time I was about as political as a brick, And we were driving down there nonstop with, 6 cases of beer. And 2, 3 in the morning, the Klan pulled us over in Arkansas and shot us up. Shot me, shot my friend. Yeah. And they thought we were Freedom Riders and then threw us in jail and spent a week telling us they were going to kill us. And so the big takeaway I got when I listened to people talking about, institutional racism and threads that run through society is one thing I learned there is that in those little towns, and we had the opportunity, if you can call it that, to be guests of 2 of them, it's not only accepted, but lauded when people do terrible things based on nothing more than they just don't like the way you look. Changed my life. At least it didn't kill me. But and we got out of it through the help of what happened. Really, is we were in jail and they were talking about how they were gonna kill us, honestly. And a new jailer came on duty, and I, of course, lied to him and said, hey, the sheriff, who, by the way, was the brother of Pretty Boy Floyd, the bank robber, that was the sheriff. The sheriff said I could make a phone call. The guy goes, really? And I said, yeah. And so he took me down, and I called, my family, collect, of course, and they hadn't heard from us in a week. And so they were frantic. And I said, hey, you got a pencil? Yeah. And I gave him the name of the jail, phone number, the name of the sheriff and all in the town and all this kind of stuff. And then very fast I said, listen, we've been shot. We're in big trouble. And a jailer slammed the phone down and frog marched me back to the cell. Now, James, I would hope not, but I don't know if you've ever been frog marched, but that's when they put their hand on your collar and their hand on the back of your pants and give you a world-class wedgie and then tiptoe you down the hall.
Wow.
And the punchline for this is...
There's a name for that?
Yeah, there's a frog marching.
Yeah, I guess. I know. I didn't know.
Now you know. And 20 minutes after that, the sheriff came in and looked at us. Now, mind you, we'd been in jail for a week and we'd been all shot up, right? And he looked at us and said, "These boys have been hurt. Take them to the hospital." I thought, well, a little after the fact. And suddenly their phone at this little jail started ringing off the hook. Newspapers were calling and all kinds of people calling. And the last call they got was from the governor of Minnesota, who called and said, "We know you've got some people down there and they better not be hurt." And later I found out what happened, which is affected me to this very day. My relatives, my folks, called a variety of people, newspapers and stuff, but one of the people they called was the president of our college where I had attended. And without knowing us, Kelly and James, without knowing, the police were saying we had a gun battle with police, you know how that goes, right? And there and all this stuff. And without knowing, he called his friend, the governor of Minnesota, and expended all that political capital, because if we'd really done something, he would have taken a lot of blowback. But he did it without hesitation. The governor called, and I think it saved our life. So later I talked to the president of the college, and I was just a kid, but I couldn't get over it. I said, "Look, why did you do that?" I said, I was just young, but I said, "I think I know the risk you took." And Kelly, to my great shame to this very day, I thought what he'd say something like, "Well, you had dated my daughter a couple times. You were a fine young man, blah, blah." But he didn't. He walked to the window, and I remember it was raining, and he stared out the window, and he told me the story about the Nazis killing his mother, who was the senior contralto at the Frankfurt Opera, and of how he and his brother, they were the only members of his family who lived by crawling under the wire into France and then getting across to England. And he turned around, he said, "I swore to myself then that I would never stand by. Never."
Wow.
And that's how,
Oh, Wayne, that's an incredible story.
that's how we got out of there alive. I'm convinced of it.
Absolutely incredible. So I want to hear about, we always get, because our show is called That's Some Crazy Shit, we always tend to attract crazy shit.
Crazy shit.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Go figure.
Yeah.
But I want to find out the day the Lord worked in a mysterious way. And because it seems like the Lord's been
that was a case right there.
Almost every story you've got. So I'm interested in this particular story.
Well, my wife and I ran a business, and I'm originally from the Midwest, South Dakota. And so we opened a tech support branch for our business there because it's relatively a poor community, and we wanted to take some tech jobs there with a software company. And so Gloria and I had my wife, and I had a couple of experiences with real estate and getting involved in big homes and buildings and stuff. So we swore that we would never get involved with some kind of a huge house again. I mean, we're just the two of us, and we'd sworn, done the pinky thing, the pinky agreement
Pinky
thing.
swear.
Yeah, we've done all that. We're not going to do it. So we're in South Dakota, and we, at the time, we were just sort of building things up. And so we put the down payment for a lake lot on our credit cards. So we had a lot on this nice lake. And we're thinking about building a little cabin. Now, I got to tell you guys, what I was talking about was flannel shirts and a chainsaw bear at the door and a crackling fireplace and, the whole thing, eating raw liver. I mean, that kind of image. And we were driving around one day, and my wife said, there's some beautiful old homes here in South Dakota. We could probably just move one onto our lake lot, which is a big thing there. farmers sell their land and they move their house into town. I mean, they literally, there's no real power lines and they can just drive across fields and stuff. So we put the word out, and one day, Gloria was back in California, which is probably a good thing. A guy out there called me and said, I hear you're looking for a house. And I said, well, we're kind of looking around. What do you got? And he said, well, there's a 103-year-old Victorian, 5,000 square foot house that we had moved, his family moved 60 years ago. And he said, they've sold the land and they either want to move the house or they're going to destroy it. So I went to look at this thing, and Kelly and James, it was beautiful. I was hoping it was a wreck, but no, it was beautiful and hardwood this and that and floors. And I sat down the stairs and I thought, oh God, how am I going to tell Gloria about this one? So she did a tour of the house, and I am getting to the Lord part here, but she did a tour of the house, and I started to say, isn't this place beautiful? And she just go, don't say a word. And she went through the whole house, and at the end she looked at me and she said, we're not going to let this beautiful lady die. So that's how we got going. Now this place had a basement under it that I tell you guys must have been 2,000 square feet or something, and had a huge antique back bar. That bad boy was like 20 feet long or something, and a bar. Oh yeah. And so we moved the house off the foundation, and mind you, we'd never done this before, but we had a company to do it. And then we looked at this bar, and it must have weighed 6 tons. And I thought, how are we going to get that out of there? They were talking about cranes and all kinds of stuff. And then I was told that originally it was moved in there by cranes and a pack of mules 60 years ago. And Gloria looks at me and goes, mules? Really?
We're not using mules.
We're not using mules. She said, no, that's no on the mules. So I said, listen, this is no problem. I'm a manly man. Trust your man. I will call VFW clubs, and I'll call various people and donate the bar, and we'll get a tax write-off and they can move it. Well, the thing was so darn big, nobody wanted it. I mean, and so here we are with the ground open, the city's screaming at us to get things out of there. They're telling us we can't leave anything in the hole in the ground because it was in violation of the law. You had to fill it in with dirt. So then a person I'd met, actually the mayor of a town in South Dakota, said, call this guy at the Salvation Army. I said, the Salvation Army? They were founded on temperance, and they're going to want this bar? And he said, just call him. So I called this guy, and he was a colonel or a general or something in the Salvation Army. He had the uniform and the hat. And he heard me out, and he said, sure, we'll take it. And I said, you will? He said, you'll have to move it. He said, thanks for telling me, but there's no problem. I gave him the dimension of the bar. He said, no problem. So here comes the morning of the move, right? Salvation Army, big semi rolls up with the general and a couple of troops in full regalia. And following were 2 blue buses with county jail pasted on their side. And they were full of inmates from the county jail. So all these inmates hopped out, and now I got 60 inmates, milling around, and they went down there and they moved that bar and put it in a Salvation Army truck and got back in their county jail buses, and off they went before the police got there, who did show up, by the way. So, they're probably wondering why there were 60 convicts milling around on our lot, and I'm looking at Gloria and she's looking at me, and I went over to the general, the Salvation Army guy. I said, listen, I got a question. He said, yeah. And I said, well, the Salvation Army was founded on temperance, and now you're taking this bar. I mean, doesn't that kind of conflict with, your founding and your rules? And I swear to you, he looked up at the sky. It started to snow a little bit. He looked up at the sky, looked down at me, put his hand on his heart and said, the Lord works in mysterious ways. And he got back in his semi with the bar, and off they went, and I never saw him again. That was it. Oh.
That is hilarious.
Yeah, that was it. And I just, the county jail and the Salvation Army and a bar.
And who would have thought, huh?
Right.
Yeah,
Who would have thought?
Yeah, and Kelly, I'm with you. You know, there's a great line in the Harry Potter movies where the headmaster looks at the three, you know, Harry Potter and his two buddies, and said, "Why is it that every time there's trouble, you people are in the middle of it?" That's how Dory and I felt. We thought, well, you know, this was supposed to be pretty straightforward, and now we had this happen, you know? So, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how to explain it.
Oh, I do want to hear one more because I think they're hilarious. But the one that I was interested in, and actually you've got a couple of them. So the day that you were saved by Mickey Mouse.
Yeah.
Okay, that kind of got my attention. And then the day of the hot date, and we fell out of the sky.
Well, Mickey Mouse one's a little longer. I know you have time constraint. The hot date thing is just another lesson you learn as you go through life about, you know, feeling maybe a little too arrogant. So this again was before I was married, and I was in the Air National Guard in Fargo, North Dakota, supporting the donut shops, you know, by pretty much what I did there. And I had a hot date in Minneapolis, which is about, if you're driving by car, it's like 6 hours from Fargo, North Dakota. That's the same Fargo that the movie was about. Mm-hmm. You know, the wood chipper and the leg and all that. That place, right? And so it was on New Year's Day. And then on New Year's Eve, that was the day of the party. New Year's Eve, we had a hell of a blizzard. And blizzards in North Dakota are whoppers. I mean, they really are. So the next day dawned bright and clear. All the roads were closed. Everything was shut down. So since I was in the Air Guard, I went out to the airport, but that was all closed because the runways were all covered. And so I went up to the tower. And this is when people were actually hitching rides on small airplanes. Now, you know, you're afraid you're getting an axe murderer, but at the time, it was kind of in vogue. And I went up to the tower, and here was a father and his son shouting at each other because they had to fly to Minneapolis. But they couldn't get out because the runways were blocked. So I said, "Hey, if I can clear a runway for you, can I ride along to Minneapolis?" They looked at me and said, "Well, sure." So I called my sergeant buddy, who was head of all the equipment at the airport. And I said, "You know what you need?" And he said, "What?" And I said, "You need 2 cases of beer, and I need runway 5 cleared." He said, "Done." So next thing, here comes this big military snowplow, and it clears the runway. And these 2 guys are looking at me, and they said, "Let's go." He went out and he fired up the plane. He said, "Get in, we're going." So here we're flying toward Minneapolis, and I'm saying to myself, "Man, I am so slick." You know, I really was. And then suddenly I noticed the pilot, the back of his neck was getting red. And suddenly he started cursing and yelling and beating on the dashboard. And I noticed the propeller was straight up and down. I was supposed to be whirling around, right? So we had no engine. We lost our engine. And we were above the potato fields in North Dakota. And they look smooth, but really they're furrows, you know, and they were all covered with snow. And we're going in, and the pilot's screaming and yelling, and his kid is yelling, and he's on the pipe shouting Mayday, and I'm thinking, oh man, you know, I'm gonna auger in some potato field in North Dakota. All I want to do is go to a party, right? So we were. I swear to you, we were going. I mean, no question about it. We were going, and we couldn't have been more than 5 or 10 feet off the ground because the guy kept trying the engine. The engine caught, and yeah, and so you know. We turned around, we're heading back to the airport, and the engine was sputtering and banging the whole time. We got there, and he landed, and they got in their car and kind of weaved out of the airport. And they pulled the plane into a hangar, and I knew one of the people there, and he was looking at the airplane, had the cowling open, and was muttering, cursing at the 2 pilots. He said, "Those stupid SOBs, they should be dead." And I said, well, I'm glad they're not.
Yeah, I'm here. I was with them. Huh?
I was with them, yeah. And he said, well, what they did is there was a blizzard and it packed the engine cowling full of snow. And they didn't pre-flight the airplane, which is one of the big rules. Yeah, so we took off, engines full of snow, the snow melts, and went down into the distributor cap and stuff. And apparently the engine was just hot enough that it boiled off the water before we hit the deck. And so the upshot was that it was a beautiful day, but the runways were still packed. And I went up to the tower again, and it was full of small craft pilots, all muttering about the idiot that had not pre-flighted his plane. And I listened to all this, and the runway was still open. I said, well, I was a passenger on the plane, which made me a celebrity. And I got a ride to Minneapolis, and I made it just as the party started. And the young lady I went to see came up to me and said, I didn't think you'd be able to make it. But with the blizzard and stuff, do you have any problem getting here? And I said, not a bit. Not a bit. Piece of cake.
No problem.
I love it.
Oh my gosh.
Slid right in here, Yeah.
So funny.
That goes under that's some crazy shit.
Yeah, really,
Gosh.
So don't my conclusion is don't tempt the gods. Well, I can clear the runway. No problem. And the gods of aviation look down and say, okay, pal.
Ego check. Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, we'll show you. So, yeah.
Wayne, thank you so much for coming on our podcast and sharing your stories. They are hilarious. It's just crazy. You've had
enjoyable.
I love talking to you guys.
Tell us the name of the book again.
Oh, bless you. Tales from the Day. And it can be on Amazon. And if anybody wants to correspond or anything, WayneMcFarland.com is a website. The bonus of going to the website is you can see my picture. It's great. And on Amazon, you just look it up under books, and there I am. So I always love talking to you guys. It's like you can go wrong, but thank you. I enjoyed it very much.
You are very welcome. We definitely enjoyed. I think it would make a perfect summer read. Because it's got some hilarious stories. Wayne, again, thank you so much for being with us. I had a fantastic time.
I did
thank
too,
you, Wayne.
Thank you very much. See you guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Kelly, and Wayne has some good stories, man.
I told you so.
Can you imagine getting, I don't know, watching a monkey with a drinking problem become more famous than you?
Or going to jail during the civil rights times.
God, that was crazy shit.
And not knowing, because they think you're a freedom rider.
Wow, he's lucky he's alive.
Yeah, he really
is. And that would be an excellent movie if there's any Hollywood producers listening.
Yeah, by chance.
Yeah, for just listening to our podcast. Hook up with Wayne, because that would be a crazy movie.
Yeah, he had some crazy stories that I thought were just crazy shit, and he's a great storyteller.
He is. I could hang out with Wayne
and just listen to him.
Sit on the deck, drink, have a couple drinks.
Have a beer, listen to him tell us stories from back in the day. Yeah, it's a great read. It's a great summer read. If you're looking for something to read, I think it'd be a great summer read.
And it's funny because he wrote his memoirs, and I keep saying when we retire, we should do ours as paid content. You scoffed at my podcast idea. You scoffed at YouTube. People will pay to hear our crazy stories, Cal.
I guess I just don't consider them to be crazy stories.
Well, because we lived them.
Maybe. But when I say them out loud, sometimes they'll be like, yeah, that's kind of crazy. Maybe. We'll see. At any rate, we have another episode next week, another guest next week. We're on a roll with the guest.
We are.
And we have been for a long time. I love having the guests, though. I like having, like, Wayne was great. Listen to that all day.
Yeah, he's funny. You know, it's been cool too about our guests, our woo-woo guests. Even our woo-woo is a little off the beaten track.
Yeah,
right? We don't give you mainstream woo-woo. We do, but we always give, there's a little different woo-woo to us.
Yeah, I would agree. If you want to listen to past episodes, check out our social media, read James's blog. You can do all of those things by going to our website, which is
somecrazyshitpodcast.com. It's all there, people.
It's all there. We are on Facebook, Instagram,
Twitter,
and YouTube. There are 4 of them. And so, and then of course you can listen to the podcast on several different platforms. James, that is really all that we have. I think next week we should plan on doing some random bullshit. But until then.
No random bullshit for this time?
Do you have anything that's random?
Anything that's random? No, not too random. Nothing I can think of that strikes as oh, I have a random thought. All right, so do you remember when we were kids and we studied dinosaurs?
Yes.
All right. So dinosaurs were all pretty much the same color, gray, scales, okay, whatever. I just picked up a National Geographic about dinosaurs because I am a nerd. Now they've gone from thinking they were all gray, slow moving, to being more bird-like with foliage and color. So I guess my random thought is how much science we've learned in, let's say, the last 50 years. Okay, now apply that to aeronautics or the automotive industry or agriculture. Where do you think we will be in 50 years in media?
In media?
Or just take a side, but where do you think we'll be in 50 years in cars, Well, we're already hitting electric cars now.
Right, and you also have self-driving cars as well. You've also got flying cars as well. You've got cars that can go on water. So you've got cars that can do this. When will it become mainstream? Maybe by then, those things will be mainstream. It's kind of like the cell phone. They had the cell phone back in the day. Like in the 50s. I
had one that was in a bag.
Right, but they had one, and that was the 90s. But I'm talking, they had cell phones in the 80s and the 70s. The cell phone's been around. It's just huge. Like the computer. Right? The computer's been around for a long time. They're just huge. Now they've been able to make them smaller. Right. And now it's mainstream. Everybody has a computer. But there was a time where nobody could ever afford to get a computer. And maybe that's what the flying car or the self-driving car will be like in 50 years, where it is just mainstream. They can't even imagine getting behind the wheel and even pushing to start the ignition. Is like, what?
I would like to be able to jump in a vehicle and say, hey man, let's do a taco time run.
And who's to say that in 50 years, that's not what people will be doing? I would hope that taco time isn't around in 50 years, but if it is, yeah, sure, why not?
Taco time will always be around.
Oh God, let's hope not. Let's hope not.
Taco Bell. That's a different story.
Either one. But yeah, that's what I think. I think that will be mainstream. Remember when we were kids, and I remember saying, yeah, one day that'd be cool if we could see one another when we talk on the phone. Well, guess what? We can see one another now.
I can see you right now.
Yeah, and we can take this with us. And this device, even though we call it a phone, people don't use it as a phone. It's everything else but a phone. Matter of fact, I picked up my sister's iPhone and I couldn't even find the phone part of the phone, like the phone apps. Like, where is the phone? Right?
Well, it's a PC, in your hand.
So that's what I think. I think the stuff that we're thinking is, these self-driving cars, or, that will be mainstream. I think you'll see things like more virtual reality become more mainstream. I think one day you'll be able to actually project your hologram someplace so you won't have to travel. You can probably do that now. So maybe that's how
do you remember Ronnie James Dio?
Mm-hmm.
From back in the day? They were doing a concert tour with his hologram.
Yeah, but I'm saying that's how you'll be able to do your doctor's visit. You'll be able to do it virtually. And they'll be able to get all the same all the same things they could get if you were sitting in front of them, but they'll be able to do it without you sitting in front of them because the AI will allow it. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, but my question is, are you still gonna have to wait 45 minutes?
No.
See, you're getting out there with that crazy thing.
No, because you're not going to be actually seen by a person anymore.
It don't matter. The AI could be running late.
AIs do not run late, James.
You know.
But I'm just saying, that's what I think. I think it will just be what we think is cutting edge now will be mainstream, just like what they thought was cutting edge then, now is mainstream for us. Right? Back in the day, in the 50s, when the TV came out, it was unheard of that you would have more than one television. What? Now, everybody had, and then your TVs, 13 inches was big. Now you're looking at 65 plus as normal size for a television. If it's not that big, it's just it's a monitor.
Yeah, I just use that for my gaming.
Yeah, so I think it's cool when you think about it. That's a good question. That's a good random bullshit, James.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else?
Well, that was about it. I'm randomed out for this episode.
Cool. Well, next week we will have another guest. We will be back. Remember, check out our social media. Take a look at James's blog. Send him a note. If you want to be on the podcast or know somebody that you think would be a great guest on the podcast, you can actually reach out to us on the website, or you can email either one of us. James is James at thatsomecrazyshitpodcast.com and Kelly at thatsomecrazyshitpodcast.com. And we'd love to tell your story.
Do it. Drop us a line, people.
Yeah. As always.
Until next time, keep your minds open.